Full story. Welcome everyone. Come on in and make yourself comfortable.
Yeah, welcome.
Today we are going to tell you the full story, the complete lore, really, of Robbie and Dobby.
Which is just a fantastic subject.
It totally is. I mean, imagine standing at your kitchen window, right? You're looking out at your backyard. You see the grass, the patio, maybe the wooden fence marking the property line.
Right, the usual stuff.
Exactly. It's a strictly Euclidean space. You measure it in square footage, you mow it in straight lines, and you understand it fundamentally as, well, just a piece of real estate.
Very contained. Very human.
Yeah, the boundaries are fixed, and the purpose of the space is entirely defined by human geometry. But if you step down off the porch and alter your perspective, literally just drop your eye line down to about, I don't know, 14 inches off the ground, that mathematical simplicity just shatters completely.
It really does. It's a completely different world down there.
You are no longer looking at a contained plot of land. You are staring at a dense, layered landscape operating on sensory frequencies that human beings cannot even comprehend, let alone navigate.
Right, because the visual map we rely on as humans, it creates a false sense of simplicity.
How so?
Well, when we look at a garden wall, we just see a barrier. But when an animal encounters that exact same wall, they are accessing this like four-dimensional tapestry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They are reading layered chemical data, they're tracking microscopic thermal shifts, and, experiencing a living historical record of every creature that has passed through that space over the last week.
That is wild to think about.
It is. The domestic garden is, in reality, this thriving, complex ecosystem teeming with ancient instincts and hidden narratives.
And that invisible ecosystem is the subject of today's deep dive. So sit back, relax, and let's step into Puppyvale.
I love that name.
Me too. We are jumping straight into an incredibly detailed piece of modern folklore that maps out one of these hidden worlds. Our source material outlines the complete living lore of a place known as Puppyvale and its central protagonist.
A very special little dog.
Yes, a brave, clever, and ever-curious Norfolk Terrier named Dobby. And for you listening, we really need to abandon the idea that this is just a sweet story about a pet playing outside.
Oh, absolutely. It's way more than that.
The lore of Puppyvale is a masterclass in how mundane spaces are mythologized into epic fantasy realms. Today, we're going to deconstruct the spatial geography of this world, trace the fierce 19th century working class lineage of our hero, dissect the societal rules that govern this animal utopia, and unpack the underlying biology that turns a dog's everyday behavior into supernatural legend.
And exploring how folklore emerges from biology is really where this material truly shines.
It totally is.
I mean, taking the everyday actions of a dog like sniffing a hedge or chasing a leaf and translating them through a lens of epic storytelling reveals so much about how we as humans try to understand the inner lives of the animals we share our homes with.
Okay, let's unpack this. Before we introduce the hero, we really have to map the territory. The text introduces us to Puppyvale, explicitly noting that it does not exist on any human map.
Right, you can't just find it on GPS.
No, not at all. It is tucked away right here in our garden, behind an old stone wall, sheltered beneath the canopy of a great oak tree.
It's an idyllic setup.
Very. The environment is described as having soft grass, endless scents, and hidden secrets in every corner. But the lore gives us very specific landmarks. We have the great oak at the geographic center, which is the oldest tree, and serves as a gathering place for wise animals to share news.
Which is a classic trope.
Yeah. And then we have the secret hedge, which is a winding line of bushes full of hidden paths and wonderful scents, perfect for hide and seek. There is the sunflower patch, a sunny golden corner where tall flowers sway, and finally, the stone path, which winds through the garden and ends at the gate, acting as the starting point for every adventure.
The topography outlined there isn't arbitrary at all. It heavily mirrors classical literary structures.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, the great oak, for example, functions as the axis mundi, the center of the world. I mean, in ancient mythologies, the world tree connects the heavens, the earth, and the underworld.
Oh, like Yggdrasil in Norse mythology.
Exactly. Here, it acts as the parliament or the town hall. It provides shade and shelter, and it is the communal anchor of the ecosystem. But I think the more critical piece of geography is the stone path leading to the gate.
Right, because that's the exit.
Yeah, in narrative architecture, that gate is the threshold. It represents the psychological and physical boundary between the known, ordered world of Puppyvale and the mysterious, chaotic unknown beyond.
So the gate is essentially the edge of the map, where the cartographer just wrote, "Here be dragons."
It is the ultimate frontier. But we have to look closer at the phrase you mentioned earlier from the text.
Which one?
Endless sense. The text is quietly asking the audience to completely reevaluate how they understand geography. I mean, humans are visual navigators. We use sight to determine distance, depth, and safety.
Sure, we look where we're going.
Right. But dogs map their world through olfaction. And canine olfaction is so profoundly different from ours that we almost need a new vocabulary for it.
I want to push back on that slightly because, well, we all know dogs have good noses. They sniff each other. They sniff fire hydrants. It's a well-known fact. How does simply having a stronger nose completely rewrite the geography of a garden?
Okay, to call a dog's nose just stronger is to severely understate the biological mechanics at play here.
Okay, lay it on me.
A human has roughly 6 million olfactory receptors. A dog, depending on the breed, has up to 300 million.
Wait, 300 million?
Yeah. Furthermore, the part of a dog's brain dedicated to analyzing odors is proportionately 40 times greater than ours.
That's
It is. So when Dobby approaches the secret hedge, he isn't just smelling leaves. A dog's nose actually separates the air into two distinct paths, one for breathing and one strictly for smelling.
I had no idea they did that.
Yeah, and when they exhale, the air exits through those little slits on the side of their nose, which creates tiny vortices that actively pull new odor molecules inward. They're continuously sampling data without interrupting their intake.
So they are essentially vacuuming up microscopic data points in a continuous unbroken stream.
Exactly, and those data points contain temporal information. Dogs can literally smell time.
Smelling time, come on.
Seriously. As scent molecules degrade, they change. A dog can smell a trail of footprints and tell which direction the animal was moving based entirely on the minute difference in scent degradation between the first footprint and the fourth footprint.
Okay, my mind is blown.
Right. So when the lore describes the secret hedge as having hidden paths and wonderful scents, we have to translate that into canine reality. The hedge is basically a four-dimensional spreadsheet.
A 4D spreadsheet, I love that.
Dobby can smell that a fox passed by at 3 a.m., that the fox was slightly stressed, and that it was carrying a vole.
Wow.
He can smell that a neighboring dog marked the stone wall 2 days ago, and that the dog's diet recently changed. The geography of Puppyvale is a living, breathing internet of chemical information.
That completely reframes the entire concept of the garden. We look at the hedge and see a physical boundary designed to keep the neighbor's kids out. Dobby smells the hedge and is basically reading the morning newspaper, checking the security logs, and analyzing the local weather patterns all at once.
That's exactly it. The space is utterly saturated with data, and that intense volume of data requires a highly specialized biological machine to process it.
Which brings us directly to the protagonist the text introduces to navigate this landscape.
Yes, Dobby himself.
So long before Dobby arrived here, his story began many years ago. Now that we understand the dense chemical reality of the map, we need to look at the guardian tasked with protecting it. The source material doesn't just call him a dog. It specifically anchors his identity in real-world history.
The origin story.
Exactly. Dobby is a Norfolk Terrier. The text notes that this is one of the oldest small working breeds, originally bred right here in the east of England.
Yep.
Their historical purpose was strictly utilitarian, They were kept on farms to hunt vermin, keep barns safe, and serve as loyal companions. The traits he inherited from this lineage are listed as natural courage, a keen sense of smell, endless energy, but balanced with a gentle, loving nature.
The agricultural history of East Anglia in the 19th century is really the forge that created this specific animal.
How so?
Well, during the agricultural revolution, farming became heavily intensified, granaries were massive, and they attracted unprecedented populations of rats.
Oh, gross.
Yeah, and rats spread disease, they destroyed grain stores, and they threatened the livelihood of entire communities. Farmers needed a reliable solution. Cats are, well, they're solitary ambush predators. They won't systematically clear a whole barn.
They just catch one and take a nap.
Pretty much. Terriers, on the other hand, derived from the Latin word terra, meaning earth, were purpose-bred to go into the ground. They were engineered for subterranean warfare.
But the text describes him with these incredibly endearing physical traits. It says he has soft, drop ears, an otter-like head, bright, intelligent eyes, and wiry fur. He arrived in the garden as a tiny puppy full of wiggles and wonder, sniffing flowers and playing.
Right.
So how does the brutal vermin hunting history of the 19th century English farm translate into this cute little guardian looking at butterflies?
Well, we really had to deconstruct those endearing physical traits because every single one of them is a piece of evolutionary armor designed for combat in tight, dark spaces.
Wait, really?
Oh, yeah. The otter-like head isn't just an aesthetic description. I mean, an otter has a broad, flat skull designed to maneuver through water. The Norfolk Terrier skull is similarly designed to slide smoothly into narrow rat burrows without getting stuck.
Oh, wow, I never thought of that.
And those drop ears that fold over so cutely, those act as biological flaps to prevent dirt, debris, and claws from entering the ear canal while the dog is digging furiously underground.
So he is literally wearing a biological combat helmet.
Precisely. And that wiry fur the text mentions is a highly functional double coat. The soft undercoat keeps them warm in the damp English weather, while the harsh, wiry outer coat acts like Kevlar.
Dog Kevlar.
Exactly. It protects the dog's skin from brambles, sharp rocks, and the teeth of cornered prey. So when the lore introduces a puppy full of wiggles and wonder who immediately maps his territory, we're actually watching a highly specialized, genetically engineered sentry conducting a perimeter sweep.
Okay, here's where I struggle with this transition a bit. You have an animal whose neurological engine was built over centuries, specifically for finding and destroying rodents. The engine is tuned for violence.
Yes, it is.
Yet the lore of Puppyvale positions him as this whimsical hero who peacefully explores a garden. Is the lore just completely ignoring his biology to tell a sweet story?
No, the lore isn't ignoring the biology at all. It is repurposing the drive.
How does that work?
Well, the neurological reward system in a terrier's brain is triggered by the hunt, right? The seeking, the digging, the discovery. In an agricultural setting, the climax of that sequence is catching the rat.
Right.
But in the utopian setting of Puppyvale, the environment doesn't require violence. But the engine is still running. The immense energy required to fight rats in a dark barn is sublimated into hypervigilant exploration.
Ah, okay.
He investigates a rustling leaf with the exact same intensity his ancestors used to investigate a rustling in the grain silo. The drive for destruction has been successfully converted into a drive for discovery.
So the hardware is exactly the same, but the software has received a massive update. He's like a retired special operations soldier who has decided to take up extreme botany.
That captures the dynamic perfectly. The capacity for extreme action is present in every muscle and nerve, but he exists in a state of peaceful stewardship. This tension between his biological capacity and his daily reality is what makes him a compelling protagonist rather than just, a pet.
Which transitions us beautifully into how that state of peaceful stewardship is actually maintained. Because if you drop a special ops soldier into a peaceful garden, you need an incredibly strong framework to keep the peace.
You really do.
Because unchecked terrier instinct just leads to chaos, dug-up flower beds, chased wildlife, total anarchy. To prevent this, the lore explicitly outlines a moral compass for the garden. There are 4 laws in Puppyvale passed down from generation to generation.
And establishing a societal code like that elevates the narrative from a simple description of an animal's day into a structured mythology.
Okay, so rule number 1. Always be kind to smaller creatures, whether that is a ladybird, a hedgehog, or a butterfly. Rule number 2. Share your toys and treats because everything is more fun when you have a friend.
Good rules to live by.
Definitely. Rule number 3. Never wander too far alone, for even the bravest puppy can get lost. And rule number 4, which it notes is the most important. Always stop to smell the flowers, because there is magic in taking time to enjoy the little things.
The first rule is the most narratively significant based on what we just discussed regarding his ancestry.
The kindness rule.
Yeah, the dictate to always be kind to smaller creatures is a direct societal override of his biological imperative.
It is the ultimate test of nature versus nurture. The Norfolk Terrier DNA is screaming, if it is smaller than you and it scurries, eradicate it. But the law of Puppyvale demands mercy.
It demands way more than mercy. It demands active stewardship. By choosing to investigate a ladybird or guide a baby hedgehog back home instead of attacking it, Dobby is demonstrating agency over his instincts. In literary terms, a hero is not defined by their power, but by their restraint. The lore frames him not as a creature reacting blindly to limbic impulses, but as a moral agent, making a conscious choice to uphold the peace of the realm. The utopian nature of Puppyvale relies entirely on the predator choosing not to be a predator.
That is incredibly profound when you strip away the storybook aesthetic. It's an entire ecosystem held together by a dog's willpower. But I actually think rule number 4 is the one that completely blew my mind.
The flower one.
Yeah, always stop to smell the flowers because there is magic in taking time to enjoy little things. That doesn't sound like a rule for surviving in a garden. That sounds like Eastern philosophy.
It really is a profound philosophical statement disguised as a cute maxim. Humans are chronically obsessed with the future and the past. Our brains are uniquely developed for mental time travel.
We're always worrying about something.
Exactly. We ruminate on what happened yesterday, and we suffer anxiety over what we have to do tomorrow. We struggle immensely with mindfulness, with simply existing in the present moment. Dogs, however, do not possess semantic memory or future planning in the way we do. They operate almost entirely in the immediate present.
So when a dog is smelling a flower, they aren't thinking about the squirrel they chased yesterday, and they aren't worried about whether dinner is going to be served at 5 o'clock.
No, not at all.
They are just 100% entirely focused on the sensory experience of the flower.
Their consciousness is entirely anchored in the now. The lore elevates this biological reality. The dog's intense focus on the immediate sensory environment into a spiritual ethos. Rule 4 isn't just an instruction for Dobby. It is the source text actively holding up the canine state of mind as a model for the audience. The magic isn't a spell. The magic is the psychological relief of total present moment awareness.
It's essentially the dog teaching the listener how to find peace. But to practice that kind of peace and to practice sharing and kindness, like Rule 2 says, you cannot exist in a vacuum. A hero needs a community. And the source material provides an incredibly colorful adventuring party to fill out this utopian map.
The social dynamics introduced in the text really allow the abstract rules of the garden to be tested and demonstrated in real time.
Let's look at the allies Dobby has assembled. First, we have Barnaby the squirrel.
A classic character.
The text describes Barnaby as fast, cheeky, and prone to hiding nuts in the strangest places. It notes that he and Dobby have a friendly rivalry, often chasing each other around the trunk of the great oak.
Right.
Crucially, the text shares an anecdote. Barnaby took a shiny stone that Dobby had found, but they made up because, according to the lore, kindness wins.
I love that detail.
Next, we have Leela the ladybird, who is tiny but very brave, knows the best flowers, and acts as the garden's weather warning system. We have Max the golden retriever from next door, big, gentle, and the champion of playing fetch. And finally, Mrs. Robin, who sits on the fence acting as the elder and historian telling stories of Puppyvale from years gone by.
If we examine this roster from an ethological perspective, the scientific study of animal behavior, we see a fascinating blend of actual biological symbiosis and mythological role-playing.
I look at this list and I just see the perfect tabletop RPG party. Think about Dungeons & Dragons.
Oh, totally.
You have the rogue, Barnaby the squirrel, whose primary skill set involves speed, evasion, and literally stealing shiny rocks. You have Leela the ladybird acting as the scout or the radar system. You have Max the golden retriever as the heavy tank, the bruiser who comes in for the big fetch missions, and Mrs. Robin is the bard, the keeper of the lore.
The application of those archetypes works perfectly because it mirrors the specialized behaviors these animals display in nature. Let's break down the dynamic between Dobby and Barnaby the squirrel.
Okay, let's do it.
In a natural, unmythologized setting, a terrier and a squirrel represent a lethal predator-prey dynamic. The terrier's instinct is absolute pursuit. The squirrel's instinct is terror and vertical evasion.
Right, there's no friendly rivalry in the wild. It is life or death.
But look at how the lore resolves this. They chase each other around the tree, engaging in play behavior. Play in mammals is a fascinating neurological phenomenon.
How so?
It involves utilizing the exact same motor patterns as hunting or fighting, but with the lethal end sequence deliberately inhibited. The animals are constantly signaling to each other, through body language like play bows, that the violence is simulated.
Like, hey, we're just pretending.
Exactly. The lore takes this biological phenomenon of inhibited drive and translates it into a moral victory. Kindness wins. They fight over a shiny stone, which is a resource conflict. And instead of it escalating to violence, the societal code of Puppyvale diffuses it.
The lore actively subverts the brutal reality of nature to maintain the utopia. And what about Max the golden retriever? How does his role differ from Dobby's genetically?
The contrast between a golden retriever and a Norfolk terrier is an excellent study in breed genetics. Retrievers were bred for a completely different kind of work.
Right, not ratting.
No. Well, a terrier was bred to work independently, make its own decisions in the dark, and dispatch its prey. A retriever was bred to work in tandem with a human hunter. Their job is to watch where a bird falls, swim or run out to it, and bring it back without damaging it. They possess what is called a soft mouth.
So Max's brain is hardwired for cooperation and gentle retrieval, while Dobby's brain is hardwired for independent problem solving and destruction.
Exactly, which is why Max is the champion of playing fetch. His genetic fulfillment comes from cooperative retrieval, whereas Dobby's fulfillment comes from investigating the unknown. They complement each other perfectly within the ecosystem.
And then there is Mrs. Robin sitting on the fence. I love the idea of a bird being the historian.
That is deeply rooted in natural interspecies communication. In the wild, birds serve as the alarm system for the entire forest. Oh yeah. When a hawk or a predator enters an area, birds issue specific alarm calls. Other species, squirrels, deer, and even dogs, have learned to understand and react to these AVM broadcasts. Birds are literally the broadcasters of news in an ecosystem.
That makes perfect sense.
So the lore simply translates her role as the biological alarm system into the role of the elder historian. By telling stories of the dogs who lived there before Dobby, she provides the world with deep time. She anchors Dobby not as the creator of Puppyvale, but simply as its current custodian.
Which elevates the entire setting. Dobby inherited this magic. He didn't invent it. With the map drawn, the hero's lineage established, the laws written, and the alliances formed, we finally arrive at the meat of the lore, the actual adventures and the supernatural legends.
This is where it gets really magical.
The text divides this into two distinct categories. First, we get a list of literal, observable micro-adventures.
The tangible events that ground the mythology in reality.
Right. The text lists things like following a yellow butterfly all the way down to a stream, which, forces Dobby to push the boundaries of his known map.
Expanding the frontier.
Yep. Digging up a shiny old button and treating it like lost treasure. Chasing dancing autumn leaves as they blow across the grass. Guiding a wandering baby hedgehog back to its home. These are the daily quests. But then the text makes a massive pivot. It moves from these cute, observable events into full-blown supernatural territory.
It transitions from ethology to mythology.
It says that Norfolk Terriers are believed to carry a little spark of garden magic. It claims Dobby can sense when the weather is about to change. It claims he knows when someone is feeling sad.
Which is fascinating.
And the most striking legend of all. It is believed that if Dobby simply sits near a wilting flower, his presence can help it grow strong again. And finally, that on quiet evenings you can hear the whispers of all the animals who guarded the garden before him.
The escalation here is just brilliant.
But I need you to help me reconcile this. The text gives us literal events like digging up a button, and then tells us the dog is a magical druid who heals plants with his aura.
Right.
Are we supposed to read this as pure fantasy, or is there a biological mechanism the author is mythologizing here?
The author is engaging in highly sophisticated myth-making based on verifiable canine biology. Let's tackle the magic of predicting the weather first.
Okay.
Long before a dark cloud appears, the atmospheric barometric pressure drops. Humans generally don't feel this, perhaps aside from a slight joint ache if they have arthritis. But a dog's inner ear is incredibly sensitive to rapid drops in barometric pressure.
So they literally feel the storm coming.
They feel it. Furthermore, a thunderstorm ionizes the air, creating ozone gas. A dog with those 300 million olfactory receptors we discussed earlier can literally smell the electrical charge of a storm miles away.
So the lore takes a purely physiological reaction to air pressure and ozone and frames it as a magical premonition. The dog becomes a weather wizard.
It is the exact same process ancient humans used to explain natural phenomena before they had scientific language. Now, consider the claim that Dobby knows when someone is sad. This is perhaps the most heavily documented magic dogs possess.
I've always wondered how they know.
Well, when a human experiences a strong emotion like fear, anxiety, or profound sadness, our endocrine system releases a cocktail of hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, which alters the chemical composition of our sweat.
We emit a chemical signature of grief.
We do, and dogs smell it instantly. Furthermore, dogs engage in a phenomenon called pupillary contagion.
What's that?
When humans look at each other, our pupils mimic the dilation of the person we are looking at to gauge their emotional state. Dogs are the only non-primate species known to read human asymmetrical facial expressions and engage in pupillary contagion with us.
Wait, really? The only non-primate?
Yes. They have spent 30,000 years evolving alongside us specifically to read our emotional bandwidth. So when the lore says Dobby knows when someone is sad, it isn't a fairy tale. It is the result of thousands of years of evolutionary symbiosis.
The magic is just deep biology. But how do you explain the wilting flower? The idea that a dog sitting next to a dying plant can infuse it with life energy. That goes beyond reading emotions. That is projecting healing power into the environment.
That is the zenith of the lore's literary ambition. It requires an understanding of the biophilia hypothesis.
Which is?
It suggests that humans possess an innate tendency to seek connections with nature and other forms of life. Studies show that simply petting a dog lowers a human's blood pressure, decreases our heart rate, and triggers a massive release of oxytocin, the bonding hormone, in both the human and the dog. A dog genuinely possesses a restorative, physiological healing presence for the humans around them.
They are basically biological antidepressants.
Exactly. The lore of Puppyvale takes that invisible emotional healing power that the dog provides to the family and externalizes it into the physical garden.
Oh, well.
The wilting flower is a metaphor for a wilting human spirit. The dog sits beside it, offers quiet companionship, and the spirit is revived. It is a stunningly poetic way to describe the psychological impact of living with an animal.
The empathy is so powerful that the lore demands it must affect the literal earth. That brings a completely different weight to watching a dog sleep in a sunbeam.
It really does.
And this brings us to the final and arguably most unique section of our source material. Because after laying out the geography, the ancestral genetics, the moral code, the alliances, and the magical legends, the text refuses to end. It introduces the unwritten pages.
A refusal to close the canon.
Yes. The lore explicitly states that the story of Robbie and Dobby is living and breathing. Every new sniff, every new game of hide and seek adds a new page to the mythology, and the text actively speculates on future events.
It asks the audience questions.
Right. It asks, will Dobby go on a quest for the legendary lost red ball? Will he discover a secret tunnel under the roots of the hedge? Will a new friend move into the neighboring yard? But it doesn't just ask rhetorical questions. The audience is explicitly invited to pitch ideas, to write new lore, to suggest adventures that become official canon.
Which fundamentally alters the nature of the text from a story to an open-source mythology.
I instantly compared this to modern video game culture. It is like an open-world RPG that constantly receives DLCs and expansion packs. But instead of being driven by a corporate development team, the content is driven entirely by the chaotic whims of a Norfolk Terrier and the imagination of the audience. The listener becomes a co-author of the universe.
The participatory nature of this folklore is what separates it from classical myth. I mean, if you read the Odyssey or Beowulf, those texts are petrified. They are static monuments of a past culture. The lore of Puppyvale is dynamic.
It's always changing.
By inviting the audience to submit their own ideas, it creates a shared cultural artifact. It transforms passive consumption into an act of communal creation. The audience projects their own dogs, their own gardens, and their own sense of wonder right into the framework of Puppyvale.
And we have to talk about the Lost Red Ball because I think that is the single greatest piece of world building in the entire document.
It is an absolute triumph of translating canine psychology into mythic narrative.
Every single person who has ever owned a dog knows the specific tragedy of the lost ball. You throw it, it bounces into a thicket of ivy, and it just vanishes into an alternate dimension.
It's gone forever.
And the dog just stares into the bushes for 20 minutes, completely unable to comprehend where the object went. To take that mundane, mildly annoying afternoon occurrence and elevate it into a legendary quest for a mythical artifact is brilliant.
The mechanism behind that obsession is actually rooted in canine object permanence. While adult dogs understand that an object still exists even if they can't see it, they rely heavily on their nose to locate it.
Right, the 4D map again.
Exactly. If a ball is made of synthetic rubber and hasn't gathered enough saliva or environmental scent, and it rolls into a visually dense area where the air currents carry the scent away from the dog, it effectively ceases to exist in their sensory map. It is a glitch in their reality.
A glitch.
By framing this sensory glitch as the lost red ball, the author creates the canine equivalent of the Holy Grail or the Golden Fleece. It is an impossible artifact that drives eternal seeking.
The endless quest. It is the perfect narrative engine because it can never truly be resolved, guaranteeing that Dobby will always have a reason to explore the edge of the map.
It ensures the hero never falls into complacency.
Taking a step back and looking at this entire document, it is incredible how much depth exists in a space most of us ignore. We started by talking about a backyard, a simple square of grass behind a stone wall.
The Euclidean space.
Right. But by taking the time to truly map the sensory reality of that space, by honoring the fierce, centuries-old genetics of a tiny terrier, by observing the social dynamics of the local wildlife, and by applying a lens of wonder to everyday biological facts, we discovered an incredibly rich, magical ecosystem.
It serves as a potent reminder that wonder is not dependent on geography. You do not need to travel to the edge of the earth to find an epic narrative. You simply need to observe your immediate surroundings with a higher degree of attention and empathy.
Which leaves me with a final thought for you, our listener, to take away today. Consider that expectation of binary human simplicity we discussed at the very beginning, the way we look at our homes and yards purely as real estate. Now look at the animals in your own life. Look at the dog sleeping on the rug or the cat staring intently out the window for hours.
Easy.
Very busy. Consider that they are not just passively existing in your human world, they are the protagonists of their own epic sagas. They possess intricate, four-dimensional maps of your home that you cannot perceive. They are navigating complex political alliances with the birds and the squirrels outside.
And following ancient moral codes.
Exactly. They are operating on moral codes inherited from their ancestors, and they are actively weaving profound mythologies out of the changing weather and the lost toys under the couch. I challenge you to look at your pet today and wonder what their specific version of Puppyvale looks like. Because if you pay close enough attention, the world they are experiencing right under your feet is infinitely more magical than the one you see.
Beautifully said.
Thank you so much for joining us on this extensive deep dive into the enchanting lore of Robbie and Dobby. We hope we've given you a new lens through which to view the world just outside your back door. Take a moment today to stop and smell the flowers, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive. Take care, everyone.